right, everybody, we are on the countdown. Yesterday, the CBDC Anti-Privacy Act, I believe. I'll look up what the official name of it was, but basically the bill got shot down in the House. So we're on Uncle Cliff's timeline, I think, of that it would be shot down 3 times, and then they come with hat in hand to Reggie Middleton. To fix the problem with this patent. So we'll be right back with Johnny Litecoin to talk about this and more right after this. Give us a like and share the video. Hey, Johnny, welcome back. I want to give a quick shout out to TPA. He's in the chat. We haven't seen him in a while. I text with him privately, but I think it's time to bring the public awakening back. The time is now. The public is awakening for sure. Maybe we can do one this weekend if we don't, if we still have internet.
Some of the public's awakening. What about all these people walking around in masks and
I just can't. I think the mask thing at this point is more of a political statement. I think they do know it doesn't work. Like, they've been told, they read the box, everybody knows. Like, it's just their way of protesting against what they think is, you know, whatever ginned up by the mainstream media. You know, they're just watching Rachel Maddow every night with their mask on and they're you know, on their couch, and I don't know. I mean, I can't wrap my brain around it partially, but anyway.
I was in a coin store the other day, and I like to walk into those places and talk to those guys. And
yeah,
somebody came in with a mask, and they were like, the guy's like, "Oh, they're really into this guy's really into Bitcoin," and I was like, "Ooh." So I was like, here he's smart enough to realize the currency's failing, but he's not smart enough to recognize the mask stuff. These people really think that the jab works, though, or worked, and that's what they
be careful. Westwood got his channel taken down.
Oh, what, talking about the jab?
Yeah, for not agreeing to community standards or something. I don't know what he said, but you know, we live in the land of the free, unless you say the wrong thing. Oh my, it's crazy around here. Yeah.
All right, so none of that. None of that.
You can only see Westwood here tomorrow afternoon because he's banned everywhere else. Well, he's on Twitter, I guess, but
is he banned for good, or did they take him?
Just one strike, so he can't post for 6 days.
Okay, then he's back.
He's in timeout.
Gotcha. Then he'll be back. So it's I'd imagine right now they're going to ramp up the censorship with that, because they're pushing the whole narrative again and all that. And you know my thoughts. I think it's to get us to fight with one another. But that's just me.
Well, they did the big. There was the big, which I don't know how big it was. Supposedly, every time they roll out a 1 million person march somewhere before they even know how many people signed up or how many people showed up, that always makes me a little suspicious. There was a 1 million person march in Ottawa supposedly yesterday, fighting against them sexualizing children, which I think is a very honorable thing. I saw some video from it, but I really just don't know how much to trust what I was seeing. And then I saw some like misleading headlines. Like, some of it said like something about loving children or something, and there were just rainbows everywhere and stuff. And I was like, how's that protecting children? I'm very confused. So there's just a lot of misinformation out there right now. I just, once again, everybody hold on loosely.
A lot of misinformation out there.
Yeah. I did want to talk about the House shooting down the CBDC bill, or, well, I'm sorry, let me say that the right way. It was they passed the anti-privacy bill, which focused on the CBDC and talked about CBDC, but it also talked about how our privacies are being exploited by these big tech and all that kind of stuff. But there was several pieces in there that talked about the CBDC, and they had some great conversations. Tom Emmer, who I think is doing some really good work on the financial committee for fighting for, constitutional money for our privacy, wrote the bill and brought up, the comparisons with the CCP programmed, controlled money and what's going on in China, and that we don't need to be emulating China with a digital controlled programmable money, and that government doesn't need to create the money. They did start talking about, the Fed being created and the Fed creating, and that the Fed wasn't actually allowed to create money, but that it was Congress's job to issue a currency. There was another guy who was reading from the Constitution that I was very much excited to hear. That doesn't happen in Congress anymore, I don't think.
No.
But yeah, so, and I think in Uncle Cliff's timeline or his data, his WebBot data, he talks about that there would be, it's either 2 or 3, and you guys in the chat, let me know if you remember, 2 or 3 efforts of creating a CBDC, but the people would refuse it or push back before they go to Reggie Middleton. And now, of course, Uncle Cliff's speaking out publicly and saying like late April or something like that, that they would come hat in hand to Reggie for the peer-to-peer. And there's a clip, which I'm going to be doing an interview with Reggie here in the next few days, or maybe into the early next week, because he's going to be busy, but where they're explaining his patent. They're talking about at that hearing, peer-to-peer transaction, trustless transactions using a distributed ledger. So Mom says 3 failed attempts. Thanks, Mom. At a currency. So what are your thoughts on the CBDC and them bringing up the issues of privacy around that with, you're in the payments industry, and how that affects all of us?
So I think it's basically going to be a CBDC, but it's not going to be the one that we're all thinking of. It very well could be, but I think more likely, I think we just saw a bank recently announce it earlier. It might have been Citi or another bank where they said they're turning their deposits in certain accounts into a digital coin that you can transfer anywhere. And I think what they're going to have is privatized. They'll give certain licenses out where people can then release a stable coin or a stable dollar. The banks will be top on the list, where like we saw it a few years ago that like JPM coin, Wells might have a coin. PayPal just has in their app now a PayPal stable dollar. And that kind of goes in line with that'll help their agenda, where they're not it's not technically a new currency. So there's still going to be the regular dollar. But when you go into your bank account or PayPal, they'll give you a lot of incentive to use this stable coin or stable dollar. And then it'll become a cashless account still. And then, so same rules apply, where there'll be programmable money and all that. It'll give them a lot more control. Right now, cash is a problem for these institutions. They don't want to give you cash. So if they convert your money into a stable coin, it benefits them. It actually makes the dollar stronger using all these privatized stable coins.
Explain that to me. Is that because I would think it would make it weaker, like because it would like create more derivatives of the dollar. But explain that to me. How do you see it making? And
Because
you
things
and
will,
when you say the dollar, do you mean the Dixie? Do you mean the Fed note? Do you mean what do you mean by the
when I
dollar?
say the dollar, I mean the the Fed note, I guess, and the which
Okay.
would be the Dixie. And it's the Dixie is the Fed note, the dollar.
Okay.
Dixie is the dollar index. That's when you trade Forex and all that. Um, you know, a constitutional dollar is, in my opinion, is what it says in the Constitution. It's a certain amount of weight in silver,
Actually.
and I think it's 0.77 something of an ounce. And a Morgan dollar is the last time they've actually had a constitutional dollar. It's like 0.7718 or something like that of an ounce of silver. That's a real dollar. That's a constitutional dollar. So I'm talking more about it'll actually help keep the Fed note strong because they're creating derivatives, but people will still be valuing things in that Fed note, in that dollar. So it's still gonna keep. It's gonna keep. It might increase inflation.
Okay.
But so it'll.
That's where I was confused.
Yeah, it definitely could contribute towards much greater inflation at a much more rapid pace. But again, you're now going to deal with digits on a screen, so they can move that decimal point around and manipulate people. But it's going to keep the relevance of the dollar around, because if everyone's moving around a stable dollar, a stable coin dollar, then it still keeps that Fed note relevant. That's what I foresee. Now, this on its face seems like a good thing because it's not an official CBDC, which I'll admit, I guess I'd rather have the banks issuing stable coins than it coming right out of the Fed, because then that's complete and total control if it comes out of the Fed. At least if private institutions issue them, you have more choice as a consumer. So it's not just one. So in other words, like there'll be certain licenses that are given out for these stable coin dollars, right?
Mm-hmm.
And certain places might use more draconian tactics on you, but certain places might be more loose and might give you better interest. So it'll at least create competition.
Create a market, like
create a market.
I would say free market, but it's banks. So,
I'm always leery of the banks because they're so in cahoots with what's going on and so against we the people. But if they give them to other places like PayPal, like Twitter, will probably get a stable coins. At least if we have different competing forces,
then we could choose which coin or which dollar, which money to use.
That's at least good for us, and that's better than our CBDC, as we're all thinking about it, that's issued by the Fed. And they say, okay,
government controlled and all of that. Yeah, because in this hearing, they were talking about this, the ones that when they talk, like their little horns would come up. They were talking about how, the reality is that everyone has an account with the government. And when you file your taxes and say you're going to apply your credit, I don't know what they were talking about, a credit from last year's taxes to this year's taxes or something, then that's your account. Basically, I guess they were talking about like your IRS payments or whatever, like if you had a running total with them or something. And he was like, and people's social security is paid in. That's an account with the government. So everybody already has these accounts with the government. And so we would just use that as an identifier and move your money into that. And I was like, wait a minute. Because then one good point they had was that when that happens, you are taking away the right to own property. You never can own anything, which we already feel like we're in that world as it is. But then any money you have goes into that centralized system, and you just have a ticket to visit your money, and hopefully they allow you to move it around as long as you're a good little citizen, and as long as you move it to where they don't mind you move it. But you can never take your money into your own possession in that scenario. And that like totally smacks in the face of the Constitution.
Right.
And the right to own private property.
Now, what I worry about them doing is, even though we have these people like Emmer and these people fighting for us, that they create an event and then they roll this out anyways on us. Yeah, and as we know, they don't follow the Constitution. They don't follow the laws. So that's why, like, they do whatever they want to do. So even like
that governor recently that tried to say that because it was an emergency, the Constitution, First Amendment, Second Amendment didn't matter. And so she was just going to ban all, arms.
Yeah.
And thankfully, there was some justice there, and that was overturned by the court. So I do have hope every once in a while. I'm like, oh, okay, there's something right going on there. But
I have hope.
I don't know why we have to go through these things.
I hope for the best, but I expect the worst, if that makes sense. So,
it has to get to the worst for people to realize that we're the only ones that are going to stop it.
Yeah. I just worry when they create these crisis events that people back down. So, like, I look at history. What happened after 9/11, how they rolled out the Patriot Act on us, and everyone laid down and rolled over and said, give it to me. Give it to me. And meanwhile,
govern me harder, Daddy.
Govern me harder. Yes. Govern. And meanwhile, it's like, wait a second, you're handing over your rights and your freedoms. I was explaining this to somebody the other day. We were talking about that event, that 9/11 event, and somebody said, well, why would they want to do that? And I explained the Patriot Act. And they said, wow, they never thought about it that way. And then I explained the missing money from the Department of Defense and other key sets of agenda. They always have multiple key sets of agenda. I talked about that a lot in the past, even with the reason why we were on the masks I don't know if I should say the word right now, but reason why we were on the masks a few years ago. Now I looked at it as they had to fix that repo market situation that was going on, and they needed to create a phenomenon where not just to fix that, but in general, they needed to create tons of money, but slow down the velocity of money. How could they do both of those things?
And I've been listening to Powell, and he's always bringing up the, Trump had the lowest unemployment, for us when he was in there. And so they had to have this adjustment of mass unemployment, but then because after a time you drop off getting counted. So there still is the unemployment. So the effects are there reflected in the economy as far as numbers, but the unemployment numbers aren't counted anymore. So the money effect is there of like, we're in this crap economy, but they're like, oh, but all these people came back to work. No, that it's not accurate. It's so skewed. It's like the inflation number. Well, it's inflation, but we left out fuel and food, you know. Well,
Yeah,
that's
I saw
not a
that
true
guy.
inflation number.
We're not counting in inflation now. Fuel, food, and housing.
Yes.
It's okay. What do you count? And then they
I'm
also
gonna serve him a dinner plate with nothing on it but air and tell him that's a full meal, you know? I
they
mean, it's
they
insane.
also move things around, like, so, like, they'll say, like, they'll use like Netflix, and I hate Netflix, but they'll use that, or just things like Netflix similar products or services, to say, well, now
Mhm.
it's not as expensive to rent movies. So now they factor things like that in, and
Right.
it's insane. I really
You can eat the bugs, so dinner is not as expensive.
Did you see the video I did the other day? Why don't you
I
go to
don't
my
know.
Twitter,
I
and
usually see all your videos.
I don't
Yeah.
I meant to send this one to you, and I think I forgot, but it's wait till you see this.
Johnny, hold on. Oh Lord. Hold on. Where am I? I'm lost on my pages. Hold on. Wait till you see this. Okay, this one?
Nope, scroll down. That one was from a
Oh,
while.
okay. Well, you look excellent there.
Thank you. That one right there.
I was like,
This
oh
isn't
Lord.
me in the
Is
video.
this one?
This is
That
something that
memo
doesn't look excellent. Yeah, show that video.
shared? Okay. Wow.
What's up,
Okay.
guys? Johnny Litecoin here. All right, I've been documenting shortages in the stores. Check this out. This is the meat aisle.
Why is this
Came for
happening
a couple
again?
steaks. Boom, 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 boom. Nothing. It is a real store because there is meat there. There's just no steaks. It's not nighttime. Last time I talked about this, people said it's probably nighttime. There's nothing here. This is crazy. I've never seen a store like this. What's up, guys? Johnny
That
Litecoin.
is wild. And this is like, I mean, why is this happening now? Because they're getting ready
The funny
to
thing
get
is,
everybody excited.
sheep always come in and fight with me. Oh, it was nighttime. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that.
Yeah.
Why are you like, this isn't a political thing. Like, why are you, this shouldn't be a left or right thing. This is, our
Right.
shelves
It's
are
just
freaking
food. Yeah.
empty, and I'm pointing it out, and you're giving me every excuse under the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And one guy was like, you're too into conspiracy stuff, this and that. I said, this isn't a conspiracy. I'm filming this at the effing store that I go to. Like, this is real. So I actually asked the lady when I was, normally I just go to self-checkout, but I went to a person, and I asked the lady, and this lady was cool. She goes, because we're giving all our money to effing Ukraine. That's why, she told me. And then she goes, there's a food shortage. She goes, I overheard management talking about it, the food shortage going on, and they were freaking out today. You see, I said, lady, yeah, because I'm not trying to bother you about this. You just work here.
Right.
I said, I'm just curious what excuses they're giving you. And
Wow.
it was, so that was, and I've filmed at that store like a week or two before that. I did another video. I've done a few videos. And here's the thing. There used to be a job, they probably still exists, but they're probably not hiring anybody for it. It was called a merchandiser. And in retail stores, the job of a merchandiser was to maximize every inch of possible space. Now being a merchandiser is a joke. It's like, well, just make it look like we have stuff so people don't panic. Like, that's probably what it should.
Pull everything to the front.
And
another thing of Uncle Cliff's data is that because of the inflation and the shortages, they were going to be changing prices so fast that like the merchandiser or whatever would be at one end and have to go back to the front of the aisle and go back and like they couldn't keep up with the changing prices.
That happens during textbook hyperinflation.
Okay.
True hyperinflation is, Weimar Germany. There's been cases of hyperinflation all over the place. Weimar Republic in Germany was one of the biggest ones ever. There's been a few other, like Zimbabwe at hyperinflation, where they have those $1 trillion notes or whatever. But Venezuela Venezuela has hyperinflation right now. Now it's not as bad as Weimar Republic, but their inflation's, I think, rate is at 432%. So I think hyperinflation, to be a real hyperinflation, is 50% inflation month over month. So that's big inflation. So when that's occurring, yeah, I mean, you can't keep, how do you price things? So I tell a lot of places, new stores that are setting up, don't use menu boards that you pay all this money to etch the prices in there. You don't know what your food cost is going to be. You don't know what the hyperinflation brings. Use a digital menu board so you could change the prices at your fingertips. That's what I would never use, a menu board that had the prices written in, because I'd be like, well, we could have to raise the prices next week. What if we're selling a strawberry thing and strawberries quadruple in price? We're going to have to sell that thing for more. So we've had serious inflation. We had, food inflation that was pretty serious, but we haven't seen hyperinflation yet. And when that happens, you'll see real panic, and then you'll see, that's when I feel like you'll see the government step in and with the UBI. But I feel like they're going to create an event to get us. And Uncle Cliff talked about it. I think Dick Allgeier talked about it. Uncle Cliff referred to it as a cataclysmic type of event. I've talked about it before on this show. I think they are going to use a nuke, and it's going to be I don't even think it's going to be real. I think they're going to tell us that, they could do a nuke anywhere in the world, and they could do one over in Ukraine, but they could hit Alaska. How would we know that Alaska's so remote? They could just say Alaska got hit by what they call like a low range tactical nuke. People don't know what that means. It's close to Russia, so they have the boogeyman to blame right there. Oh, it's too close to Russia. We can't, now we're in this nuclear like lockdown kind of thing. You know what I mean? And that they would be able to roll out multiple key sets of agenda with that. New currency, new identity, restriction of movements, lockdown, and then they would be able to get people to willingly hand over their freedom, because they'd have the public so afraid they would turn their eye to, or they would have a blind eye to any type of notion of freedom, and just say, come in, big brother, govern me harder kind of thing. You know what I mean? And so that's what I'm afraid of, that they're going to roll out. I don't think this stuff's going to be real. I think it's just going to be fake, and they're just going to use it and tell us. And it
doesn't have to be real. It just has to be. I mean, they have control of media. They control, what the weather does, because so they can either, fake something with the weather, or fake the weather app that reports to you so you think something's going to happen. Like, so much of it is just the Matrix. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. I don't know. Jenny and I are going to do, she had something come up. So she said she promises we'll do the show probably this weekend. I'm going to just put it off and say sometime this weekend. But she and Heidi were up till like 4 a.m. talking about Uncle Cliff's video, and then she called me to get the details because she knew I had watched it several times. And talking about those, that 3 to 13% emotional value that was going to be coming up or happening. And I have some ideas around it, and she had like a vision about it, and then of course pulled some cards about it. And so we kind of have some ideas around the 23rd, that report, the cargo report coming up, and possibly having something to do with the children in those cargo reports that are ordered by the NDAA to come out to Congress on the 23rd. So it'll be interesting to see if that's like has anything to do with it.
I guess that's Saturday, right?
Yeah.
All eyes on the 20.
We'll see. We shall see.
Ready for anything, and most likely they're going to do something that we never even thought of. So I talked about it too, the alien invasion. I've been talking about that for years, saying that when shit hits the fan, they'll roll that out and it'll be fake.
Well, so I think the good guys did the Mexico thing. I was watching Uncle Cliff talk with John Claude and Snippy about that. And I think the good guys did the one in Mexico to take away or dispel the hype that it could have caused if there had been silence or nothing talking about it, and then they push it in the US. So if they've already kind of it's a nothing burger now because that happened in Mexico, but they were paper mache. And now if they do something like that now in the US somewhere, or if they do a alien thing right now, people would be like, meh. Remember a couple of months ago or a couple of weeks ago, they did that and it was just some paper mache and animal bones they had pressed together in Mexico. So I kind of feel like they know this, it is a big psyop, and they know there's these emotional values or emotional tensions around it. And they know our energy is so powerful in all of this, and seems like that's what's really moving these actions along, which way it's going to go.
I just think be ready for them to do anything. And it's always like, again, they have things ready to roll out on us that we're not even thinking of. And it's just like, and then it happens and it's like, how did this happen? They're studying how to get us like all the time. And it's, and I kind of half joked about it in the past, but I think that I really think they could do a national, nationwide, TikTok competition.
You said that, yeah.
And I think when things get really bad, they're going to do that. And I kind of half joked, but I'm kind of half serious too, because they'll do it as a sweepstakes. And then they'll tell people it'll be $1 million a day for the best, stupid TikTok video people do.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll have everyone trying to come out with these videos. You see my neighbor's video? And they'll have people totally focused on that. And meanwhile, they'll use that for the subliminal messaging and the mind control. So they'll be killing a couple birds with one stone, because you'll be focused on that, and then they're mind controlling you. They're getting everyone to focus on the same thing, so it'll be a mass. What do they call a mass formation, psychosis type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Few of us that are kind of keen on this won't be into it, but then everyone's going to be talking about it.
Is that what they're doing with the 10-4 thing? Because my husband said even he took the car to go do something. He's like, I was just listening to my little old fart radio station. He listens to the old rock or whatever. And he's like, they were talking about it on the radio, on normie radio station, this 10-4 EBS thing. And then I thought about, I was talking with the guys over at World Blockchain Roundtable, and they said, do you remember that or it wasn't TikTok. They didn't have TikTok back then. But there was some social media challenge where everybody froze in a position, and then one person went around like with a GoPro and got like a 3D view of the scene with everybody frozen. We used it for like a commercial for my nonprofit one year for Christmas. But what they were doing is they were trying to gather 3D images of people's faces to train AI, and they were having trouble getting it in moving pictures. So they did this challenge and put it out there and got the people to all just submit the information so that the AI could learn off of that.
Sure.
Like, the stuff we submit is incredible, and we go along with it, and it is just one big side.
Anything that gains like traction and popularity, like I worry about. Even things that appear good. So like a few years back, they had that ice bucket challenge for ALS.
Yeah. Don't
Ice buckets on people's heads. That was bad. And you'd be like, well, how was that bad? The ALS Association was behind that. They got all the money, and it all went to they're like the Clinton Foundation. All went to their own salaries, and they pilfered the money.
Man.
None of it went.
Went to research.
None of it went to the patients, and the main therapy that's shown to work, they actively fight against it. They have like plants and stuff to put out bad info about it. And the patients that have ALS and the families, like, we want this therapy. It's called Neurone, and they won't give it to them. And it's sick. And the ALS Association is the biggest criminals out there. Now, there's some local chapters that are good. They mean well. But the National Association is toxic, bad, evil. It's an evil entity, and it's just basically a money pilfering machine. And they were the ones behind that ice bucket challenge. So none of it went to anything for the patients. And here are people doing videos, donating money, thinking, oh, this is good, this is good. All you did was let people pilfer the money from it that had nobody's best interests at heart.
Well, and you see that over and over again with the Black Lives Matter thing. They were buying mansions, for people. I do want to mention really quick, I know you've got to run. SBF Daddy wrote him a note, and there's a lawsuit, I guess, with the individuals that lost their money through FTX. So it's not a criminal case, but it is a civil case. And through their exposure or research, maybe depositions, I don't know, but they got these emails showing the SBF's daddy asking SBF for like millions of dollars or something, but some money. And SBF had to go ask mommy. Why is he asking mommy for money to give to daddy through FTX? What's wrong here? And why is he having meetings with Maxine Waters and all of this? I don't know.
He's a patsy.
Does nobody at the Ethereum group ever get caught or have anything?
SBF is kind of like he's like Lee Harvey Oswald. If you think he was the mastermind behind things, that's like thinking Oswald was the mastermind.
Yeah, I don't even think he cuts his own fingernails, to be honest. Like, he's infantile. I don't think
so. He's a psyop, and he was a patsy. He was a patsy, and he was put in there by bad people that were controlling him. And SBF was just the face of the operation. Bingo. I mean, that's
sick. They use their children in more ways than we'll probably ever know.
He was just the front guy. Yep. He was just he was the front man. It worked. He seemed like, he's like this goofy guy with his crazy hair. Don't get me wrong. He had like a bad energy. Like, if you read his energy, like, energy wasn't good coming off of that guy. But he wasn't the man. There are so many people behind him that were higher up. And he was just the people we see, even like Epstein. Epstein wasn't the mastermind of that. Epstein was kind of like
Pervert.
probably
Yeah.
he was like
He was
middle management probably. There's
compromised too. Yeah.
people way above Epstein, and Epstein's just the guy that we saw of and kind of like the fall guy for this whole thing. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep.
So
They always have someone they can collapse it on. So
yep, exactly.
well, we will be back at it. Everybody stay strong like Johnny and
Yes.
smart like Lisa, and you'll do fine in this. And we'll see you guys next time here on the new normal. Take care.
Later, guys.